Okay, so Baldur's Gate is supposed to be coming out in a couple of months. I believe it's supposed to be released in August of 2023. And I believe the early access version of this game was released back in 2020. So that was almost 3 years ago, and a lot of people had nothing but good things to say about Baldur's Gate 3, and this is basically the sequel to Baldur's Gate 2, which came out in 2013, and believe it or not, Baldur's Gate 2 is actually considered to be one of the best RPGs of the teens decade, but the thing is, it doesn't really get talked about as much in the same light as Skyrim or Diablo 3 or any of those RPGs, which, obviously are more popular to, I guess, casuals in general. I think, hardcore RPG fans are more familiar with Baldur's Gate and the Baldur's Gate series, which has been around since the late 90s, because I believe the very first game came out back in 1998, and it seems like, we get a Baldur's Gate game every decade. We got one in the 90s. Actually, no, scratch that. We don't get one every decade. We got a game in the 90s. We got Baldur's Gate 2 in the teens. And we're getting Baldur's Gate 3, in August 2023. And the thing is, a lot of people thought Baldur's Gate wasn't going to happen years ago because I believe BioWare was the original developer for, BioWare 1 and 2. And I think it was reported, I don't even remember when, but BioWare had lost the license for the Baldur's Gate series. And it turns out that Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be developed and published by Larian Studios. And honestly, I feel like the game itself, the character designs and the gameplay and the dialogue and the voice acting, all that stuff is magnificent and looks like it's going to be a very promising game once it comes out. But something that people are kind of skeptical about in relation to Baldur's Gate 3 is the fact that it's going to be a turn-based RPG opposed to an action RPG. And honestly, I really have no problem with that for the most part because action RPG is something that everyone's trying to duplicate, and it's to a point now where there's nothing wrong with action RPGs at all, but for the most part, I don't know, some video game developers do it right, others don't, and I do feel that with Baldur's Gate 3, I guess using a turn-based, combat approach in relation to gameplay is something that would probably appeal to, it's something that could appeal to casuals, and it's something that I guess old school gamers from the 90s and early 2000s would appreciate because you don't see too many turn-based RPGs in this day and age. In fact, I think Square Enix has decided to ditch, turn-based combat in relation to Final Fantasy 16, and basically they're going with the action RPG approach, and it's something that could work or something that could, it could basically backfire on them. But at the same time, it seemed like Square Enix is trying to get with the times, and that's why they decided to make Final Fantasy 16 a action RPG. As far as Baldur's Gate is concerned, it's something that'll make the game stand out. And I do feel that Baldur's Gate 3, even though it's something that people are talking about and it's 10 years in the making, it's something that could possibly get overshadowed in relation to, I guess, it receiving mainstream attention following its release, because we've already seen several big video games come out so far, one of them being Diablo 4, which just came out not too long ago, and a lot of people are already going on record and saying that either that or Hogwarts Legacy is going to be the best RPG of 2023. And I do feel that, with all the games that have come out thus far, it's going to be tough for Baldur's Gate 3 to win, Best Video Game of the Year award or anything like that. But I still think that Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be a masterpiece regardless of how you slice it, because A, the anticipation is too high. B, it's a game that people didn't think they were going to get because BioWare seemed like they were never going to release it, and they're not the ones to release it. They're not developing or publishing the game. We got a different, developer and publisher instead. And it seems like they've done just as good of a job, if not better, with Baldur's Gate 3 than, BioWare did with Baldur's Gate 2 when it came out back in 2013.